The small village nestled in the heart of the dense forest was known for its picturesque beauty and serene tranquility. But there was one place that the villagers avoided at all costs, a cabin deep in the woods that was rumored to be cursed. It was said that many years ago, a family had settled in the cabin, seeking a life of isolation and simplicity. But as the months passed, strange occurrences began to happen. Animals were found mutilated and drained of blood, and the family began to exhibit erratic and violent behavior. The villagers grew increasingly worried and eventually decided to investigate. What they found within the cabin was a horror beyond imagination. The family had been dabbling in dark arts, summoning and making deals with malevolent entities from another realm. They had opened a portal to a realm of darkness and despair, and the creatures from that realm had taken control of the family, using them as vessels to carry out their evil bidding on Earth. The villagers knew they had to put an end to the nightmare and formed a group to confront the possessed family. The battle was fierce, and many brave souls were lost, but in the end, the villagers were victorious, and the portal was sealed. But the cost was great. Not only had many lives been lost, but the cabin and the surrounding area were forever tainted by the dark energy that had been unleashed. The cabin quickly became legend and a warning to all who would dare enter the forbidden cabin deep in the woods. But there were always those who were drawn to the cabin, drawn to the dark and mysterious power that it held. Years passed, and the cabin fell into ruin. But the legends of the cursed cabin and the family who had unleashed hell upon the earth lived on. The villagers whispered that the spirits of the family still haunted the cabin, and that anyone who dared enter would never return. Despite the warnings, a group of thrill-seekers decided to explore the cabin. They laughed at the stories of ghosts and cursed artifacts, thinking them nothing but old wives' tales. But as they entered the cabin, they quickly realized that they had made a grave mistake. The air inside the cabin was thick with a sense of dread, and the artifacts seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. The floorboards creaked beneath their feet and the musty smell of decay filled their nostrils. Cobwebs adorned every corner, and dust covered every surface. As they ventured deeper into the cabin, they could hear strange noises and feel the presence of something malevolent lurking in the shadows. Suddenly, one of the group members disappeared. The others searched frantically for their missing companion, but he was nowhere to be found. It was as if he had been swallowed up by the very walls of the cabin. Panic set in, and the remaining members of the group tried to flee the cabin. But as they reached the door, it wouldn't budge. They were trapped, and they knew that they were not alone. They could hear the creatures of the dark realm, whispering and laughing in the darkness. They could feel their cold, clammy hands reaching out to grab them, pulling them deeper into the abyss. The group members felt their heart pounding in their chest as they frantically searched for a way out. But every window was boarded up, and every door was locked tight. As they were running out of options, they stumbled upon a room in the basement, the walls adorned with strange symbols and inscriptions. At the center of the room stood a large pentagram, and in the center of the pentagram, a portal was open, leading to the realm of darkness. The group members realized that the portal had been opened again and that their fate was sealed. They could hear the creatures getting closer, their twisted laughter growing louder and more frenzied. They knew that there was no escape, and they braced themselves for the inevitable. But just as the creatures were about to claim their souls, one of the group members remembered a story that their grandmother had told them. She had been one of the villagers who had fought to seal the portal all those years ago, and she had shared with them the secret to closing it. Desperate and with nothing to lose, the group member began to recite the ancient incantations, passed down through generations, to seal the portal once again. At first, nothing seemed to happen, but as the incantations grew louder, the symbols on the walls began to glow, and the portal started to shrink. The creatures of the dark realm howled in rage as they were sucked back into their own realm, and the portal slammed shut. The cabin shook with the force of the closing portal, and the group members were thrown to the ground. But when they looked up, they realized that they were no longer in the cabin. They were back in the forest, standing outside of the cabin, and the door was open. They stumbled out of the cabin, gasping for air, their hearts racing. They looked back at the cabin, expecting it to crumble to the ground, but to their surprise, it stood tall and strong. The curse had been lifted, and the cabin was no longer a place of darkness and death. The group members knew that they had to keep the secret of the cabin and its power to themselves. They made a pact to never speak of what had happened that night and to never return to the cabin again. But to this day, the villagers still whisper about the cursed cabin deep in the woods, and the brave souls who had ventured inside, never to return. And those who dare to enter, still risk losing themselves to the darkness that lies within.